Kids, this is the last part of this book by Gail Herman on what is climate change. She ends it with a table of important dates but focused on the US, such as the first factory that got established in Rhode Island in 1790. About a half century before that, industrial revolution had started in Europe, especially in the UK. Factories were blooming, energy was being consumed more and more to produce more and more things, and people were beginning to get used to the idea of buying things that they don't even need. But we can go even further back to the beginning of the Holocene, end of the last ice age, when we began to figure out how to domesticate wild grasses that became our staple cereals and other grains. And we started to settle down and clear more and more land for agriculture. Settling down is supposed to have allowed us to become, more fertile, better family units and growing population. Along the way, we have had big events like the Black Plague and so on. But in the 1850s, Eunice Foote did an experiment on how increasing CO2 can trap energy. John Tyndall followed up about a decade later with similar results. In 1896, Svante Arrhenius, a Swedish scientist we mentioned before, wrote a nice paper on how CO2 is going to make the climate warmer, and he even estimated how much CO2 will it take to double the warming, and he thought warming will not be bad because Sweden will have warmer winters. He was tired of cold winters in Sweden. Move into the 20th century, we had a report in the newspaper in 2012 talking about global warming. Guy Callender did some nice modeling and calculations to show how warming was already happening in the 1940s, late 50s. Actually, Roger Revelle showed that oceans cannot keep on taking up CO2. So he asked Charles David Keeling to start measuring, and we got the Keeling curve in the 1960s. Climate models started to come along. Suki Manabe did some nice modeling, and he won the Nobel Prize recently for that. And in the 1970s, Wally Broker of Columbia University warned about global warming. And in the 1980s, Jim Hansen of NASA warned about the same thing. 1972, UN had its first environmental meeting. 1992, UNFCCC got established, and then Paris Agreement was signed on by majority of the countries, almost all the countries. Then came Paris Agreement and so on. Here we are. We need solutions. We need to work on solutions, kids, and you can be part of